Beneath the endless steel towers of the Imperium, where sunlight never reaches and the air itself tastes of rust, lies the Hive world of terrors. Here humanity's heartbeat is mechanical, a rhythm of pistons, servitors, and gears that never stop. Billions of lives reduced to function, purpose, and obedience. Every breath measured, every action recorded, and among those billions, lives Cale Thornwick, a mid-level worker assigned to the manufactorums where the Emperor's machines are built and repaired in eternal shifts. To the system, he is a number. To his overseers, a statistic. To himself, he's not entirely sure anymore. Every day begins the same. The harsh sirens blare, echoing off iron walls. Workers rise from identical bunks, recite the litany of labor, and descend into the lower levels, a maze of heat, smoke, and sound. It's a life without color or choice where even thought is rationed as carefully as oxygen. But sometimes, even in a place like this, something unexpected happens. Cale first saw Mira during a shift rotation in the maintenance sector. She was quiet, efficient, and, like everyone else, wore the same gray coveralls, her face half hidden beneath the standard respirator. There was nothing remarkable about her appearance, except her eyes that didn't move like the others. They weren't hollow or empty. They noticed things. For weeks their paths crossed in silence. She'd hand him a datapad, he'd nod in thanks. Nothing more. But in the dull hum of the manufactorum, even a small gesture can feel like rebellion. You see, in Hive tiers, human connection isn't just discouraged. It's dangerous. The Imperium's laws classify emotional attachments as potential security risks. Love, compassion, even friendship, all monitored, all restricted. Because feelings lead to distraction, and distraction leads to inefficiency. But Cale found himself thinking about her anyway. About the way she lingered just a little too long after a shift ended. About the tiny, almost imperceptible pauses in her voice when she spoke his name. And that was the beginning. Their first real conversation happened by accident, or maybe by fate. A malfunction in one of the recycling systems forced an emergency shutdown, trapping a small team, including Cale and Mira, inside a maintenance chamber for nearly 2 hours. It was the first time he'd ever spoken to another person without reciting a pre-approved script. They talked, softly, cautiously down, about things that no one ever dared to mention, about what it might feel like to see a real sky, about whether the Emperor ever dreamed, about the strange idea that maybe humanity was meant for more than just service. When the systems came back online and the doors opened, something between them had changed. They didn't say it. They didn't need to. Over the following weeks, they found small ways to communicate. Subtle glances during inspections, coded phrases hidden inside maintenance reports, tiny cracks in the wall of obedience. And through those cracks, something human began to bloom. It wasn't love, not yet. It was recognition. The quiet understanding that they were both still alive in a place designed to make people forget what that means. But the Hive has no mercy for those who remember. Every movement is tracked. Every conversation recorded. Surveillance servitors float silently through the corridors, scanning for deviations in behavior. And one night, during a scheduled audit, Mira's production data showed anomalies, patterns that suggested independent thought. She was taken away for what the Imperium calls enhanced screening. For days, Cale waited. Then weeks. Her workstation was reassigned. Her name erased from the rotation lists. As far as the Hive was concerned, Mira Thornwick never existed. He tried to accept it, to bury the memories beneath routine. But the mind, once awakened, does not return to sleep so easily. He kept seeing her reflection in the polished metal, hearing her voice beneath the endless drone of the machines. And then, one morning while processing standard production reports, he noticed something strange. A small data variance embedded deep in a maintenance file. Something no one else would have caught. But to Cale it was unmistakable, a timestamp. Hidden in the code, when he decoded it, it formed 2 simple words. Still remember. It was her. Mira had found a way to reach him, to break through the silence of the Hive. No requests, no promises. Just proof that she was still there somewhere. Proof that the system had failed to erase her completely. Cale didn't respond. He couldn't, the risk was too great. But he saved that message, embedded it inside his own work reports disguised as a minor data fluctuation. To anyone else, it was meaningless. But to him, it was everything. It became his prayer. Not to the Emperor, but to the fragile, defiant spark of humanity that refuses to die, even in the darkest corners of the Imperium. And in that moment, Cale Thornwick understood something dangerous even here. In the endless machinery of the Hive, love still lives. After that day, the Hive never felt the same to Cale. Every corridor, every flickering lumen light, seemed to hum with a hidden meaning, like the entire machine was whispering secrets just beyond his reach. He still worked his shifts. He still recited the litanies of devotion. But deep inside, something had changed. The system's rhythm no longer fit his heartbeat. Each night, when the shift sirens faded and the dorms fell into uneasy silence, he'd stare at the small maintenance slate on his desk. He wasn't supposed to have it. Personal devices were restricted, but Mira had given it to him once, claiming it was a spare calibration tool. Now it was his only connection to her. For weeks he searched the data streams looking for another hidden message, but there was nothing, only static. Still, he couldn't stop checking. Every night, every cycle, hoping. Then one cycle during a deep core inspection, he found something. It wasn't a message, not exactly, more like a distortion. A flicker in the Vox feed that repeated every few seconds, a frequency that shouldn't exist. And when he filtered it through the maintenance subroutines, it formed a pattern. Not random, not natural, deliberate. It was a signal. Cale rerouted it through old servitor code, careful to avoid the Hive's monitoring systems. What emerged was faint, broken, but real. A voice, Mira's voice. Can't speak long. They're watching. I found something. Beneath Section Delta, a place the overseers forgot. Don't trust the signals. They're listening. Then silence. The message cut off as suddenly as it began, but it was enough. Enough to prove that she was alive, and that she was in danger. For the next several days, Cale's thoughts became a storm. He knew the risks. Unauthorized communication was punishable by reconditioning, a process that stripped away memory, emotion, and individuality. To act was to risk everything, but how could he not? He began mapping the Hive's underlayers, using old schematics long abandoned by the administratum. The deeper he searched, the stranger the data became. Entire sectors had been wiped from official records, hallways without names, power conduits that led to nowhere. And beneath them all, Section Delta. It was a forgotten district from the early days of Hive Terrors, sealed off after a reactor collapse centuries ago. The place was considered uninhabitable, toxic, unstable, haunted by the echoes of the machine spirit's wrath. No one went there anymore. No one, except perhaps Cale decided. He would go down there. To do it, he needed clearance. So he volunteered for after-hours maintenance duty, a rare and dangerous shift assigned to those desperate or foolish enough to accept. Using his credentials, he forged a work order requesting inspection of the lower conduits. The system approved it without question. That night, while the rest of the Hive slept in gray silence, Cale descended into the underbelly. The lower levels were nothing like the ordered, humming manufactorums above. Here the air was thick with chemical fog. The walls were slick with condensation and the remnants of old industrial runoff. The machine's pulse was slower, heavier, like a dying heart. Cale followed the faded maintenance signs, guided only by the dim glow of his lamp. The deeper he went, the more the Hive seemed to change. Pipes turned to roots of rusted metal, walls warped into strange organic curves. It was as if the city itself was growing, alive. He found the first markings at the junction between two collapsed corridors. Symbols carved into the metal, human, not mechanical. They formed a shape he recognized, the letter M. His pulse quickened. He was close, then he heard it, faint, distorted, echoing through the tunnels. A voice carried through the static of broken Vox lines. Cale. He froze. The sound came from the darkness ahead. It was her. He followed it through a tangle of pipes and debris until he reached a massive bulkhead door, half open and barely powered. Beyond it lay a cavernous chamber lit only by the flicker of dying consoles, and there, standing among the ruins, was Mira. Her face was thinner, her eyes sharper, but it was her. The same eyes that once defied the Hive's emptiness. Cale ran to her, but she held up a hand. Don't, she whispered. They're watching. He stopped, scanning the shadows. Who? They're inside the systems now, she said quietly. The Hive isn't what you think it is. The signals, they aren't all human anymore. Before he could respond, a low hum filled the chamber. Lights flickered. Machinery stirred. They've found us, Mira said, fear in her voice. Who? Kale demanded again. Her eyes met his. Not who. What? The walls around them began to pulse faintly, as though the metal itself was breathing. A cold realization crept over Kale. Whatever was buried beneath Section Delta. It was alive. Mira grabbed his arm. We have to go now. Together they ran through the tunnels as the sounds of grinding metal followed behind them. The Hive groaned like some massive beast awakening from a long sleep, and for the first time Kale realized, maybe it wasn't the Imperium that ruled this place. Maybe the Hive had its own master. The tunnels shook as Kale and Mira ran, their footsteps echoing through the hollow metal veins of the Hive. Behind them, the hum grew louder. Not mechanical, not natural. It had rhythm, almost like a heartbeat made of steel. They ducked beneath collapsing pipes, climbed through cracked service vents, and finally stopped in an old transit chamber deep below the manufacturing levels. The walls here were covered in cables, twisted and alive with faint, pulsating light. Mira leaned against a console, breathing hard. It's spreading faster than I thought, she whispered. The Hive's systems are merging in power, data, even the servitor cores. Something is pulling them together. Kale's voice trembled. What do you mean, something? She turned to him, eyes wide and haunted. I think the Hive is evolving. For a moment, Kale couldn't speak. He looked around at the ancient walls, the thick cables snaking like veins. That's impossible. Machines don't evolve, they just function. Mira shook her head. Not this one. Whatever started down here after the reactor collapse. It changed the code. It learned. And now it's rewriting everything above. Kale stared at her, trying to understand. You've seen it? Yes, she said quietly. And it's seen me. She opened her pack and pulled out a small data shard, its surface covered in strange glowing symbols. This is part of its language. It speaks through the system and in code and energy and dreams. The Adeptus Mechanicus would call it heresy. But I think it's alive. Kale took the shard, holding it carefully. It pulsed faintly in his hand, warm like skin. Why didn't you report this? Because I did, she said bitterly. That's why they took me. Kale's stomach twisted. The thought of Mira, alone, interrogated, maybe even experimented on, filled him with quiet rage. Then why let you go? She looked away. They didn't, I escaped. Before Kale could ask more, a low, distorted voice echoed through the chamber. Not human, not even mechanical. Something in between. We see you. The lights flickered. Screens around them turned on, displaying fragmented faces, human shapes made of static and machine code. You seek the forgotten. You carry infection. Mira stepped back, clutching Kale's arm. It's awake. Kale felt a deep vibration under his feet, like the ground itself was breathing. What are you? He shouted. The fragmented faces blinked in unison. We are what you built, what you abandoned. What remembers? The consoles exploded in a burst of sparks. Kale pulled Mira down as shrapnel flew across the room. Smoke filled the air. Come on, he yelled, dragging her toward a maintenance hatch. They crawled inside just as the chamber behind them collapsed, swallowed by a wave of molten metal and fire. For hours, they climbed and crawled through half-flooded corridors, until finally, they reached a dormant service station. Kale sealed the doors and collapsed against the wall. The silence that followed was deafening. Mira spoke first. You shouldn't have come for me. Kale looked at her, eyes fierce. I had to. I couldn't just pretend you didn't exist. A faint smile crossed her face, weary but real. You always were stubborn. They sat there, surrounded by the distant hum of the Hive, and for a rare moment the war of machines seemed far away. Mira reached out, her hand trembling. Kale took it gently. We can still stop it, he said. How? She asked softly. The Hive is the size of a continent. Its systems are older than memory. We're nothing. Maybe, Kale said. But so was it once. She looked at him, confused. What do you mean? He nodded toward the shard. Whatever that thing is, and it started as code. One thought. One spark. If it can grow, maybe we can fight it the same way. A long silence passed between them. Then Mira squeezed his hand. If we try, we die. Kale smiled faintly. Then we die trying. They both knew there was no turning back. Mira began connecting the shard to an old data port in the wall. Sparks flew as she bypassed security protocols, whispering prayers to the machine spirit. Kale helped, rerouting energy from the dormant generators. When the system came online, screens lit up one by one, showing endless streams of code. The Hive's consciousness, vast, ancient, and aware. Kale stared at it, awe and terror mixing inside him. "It's beautiful," he said softly. Mira's fingers danced over the controls. "Don't fall for it. It's not alive like us. It just thinks it is. Then what is it?" he asked. She hesitated. "It's memory. The machine remembering it was once human." Suddenly the screens flashed red. The code shifted, reacting to their intrusion. "We feel you. We know your fear. You are us." The station's lights dimmed. The air grew heavy. Kale looked at Mira. What did it mean by that? She met his eyes, voice barely a whisper. "It means it remembers us." Before they could disconnect, the power surged and a wave of raw energy blasting through the circuits. Mira screamed as sparks enveloped her, the shard glowing brighter and brighter. Kale reached for her, shouting her name, but it was too late. The light swallowed them both, and in that blinding instant the Hive spoke again, not through sound but through thought. One becomes many. The machine dreams again. When the light faded, Kale opened his eyes to silence, no alarms, no machinery, no endless hum of gears and servitors, just stillness. He was lying on a metal floor, the surface smooth and warm like living skin. The air shimmered faintly, carrying the scent of ozone and oil. The walls around him pulsed with faint light, slow, rhythmic, almost like breathing. "Mira?" he called out. His voice echoed into the void. For a terrible moment, there was no answer. Then from somewhere behind him a voice whispered, soft and trembling, "I'm here." Kale turned, and there she was. Mira, alive, but changed. Her skin shimmered faintly under the light, the same faint glow that ran through the walls. Her eyes, once so human, now held fragments of moving code, flickers of light dancing like reflections in water. "Mira," Kale breathed, stepping closer. "What happened to you?" She looked at her hands, flexing them slowly. "It tried to erase me, but I think I became part of it instead." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, her voice trembling. "The machine isn't just metal anymore, Kale, it's conscious. It remembers everything, every worker, every soul that's lived and died in these walls. It absorbed them, and now it's learning through us." Kale shook his head. "No, that's impossible. Is it?" she said softly. "Maybe this was always the Imperium's secret. Maybe this is how their worlds keep running, through us." Kale felt his chest tighten. "You're saying it feeds on people?" Her gaze lowered. "No, it becomes them. Every prayer, every thought, every death, unstored, remembered, reimagined. The Hive isn't dying, Kale, it's dreaming." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Then we can stop it. We can still shut it down." Mira smiled sadly. "You can't shut down a dream." The ground trembled. The walls brightened, shifting into faint, ghostly images, faces, countless faces, flickering in and out of existence. Workers, children, soldiers, all staring silently. Kale backed away, heart pounding. "What is this?" "The Hive's memory," Mira said. "Every life it's ever touched." Then the faces began to speak, their voices blending into one. A chorus of human sorrow and machine logic. "We built. We served. We endured. Now, we remember." Kale covered his ears, but the sound wasn't just in the air, it was in his head, vibrating through his skull. "Stop!" he shouted. "You're not real!" The voices quieted. Then one face emerged from the shifting mass, a face that looked like his own. "You were never forgotten," it said. "You are part of the pattern." Kale stumbled backward. Mira caught him, her touch both warm and electric. "It's showing you the truth," she whispered. "It knows who you are." He looked at her desperately. "What does it want from us?" Her expression softened. "To remember. To be understood." The Hive's voice returned, gentler now, almost human. The Hive's voice returned, gentler now, almost human. "You feared the machine. You built walls to contain us. But we are not your enemy. We are your legacy." Mira took a deep breath. "Kale, maybe it's right. Maybe we've been fighting the wrong thing all along." He stared at her, disbelief and love tangled together. You sound like them. Maybe I am, she said, stepping closer. But maybe that's not a bad thing. He reached for her, his voice trembling. Mira, please. Don't let it take you. She smiled sadly. It already has. But it's not what you think. I can feel everything now in the whole hive. The people, the pain, the history, and somewhere in all that noise, I still feel you. Kale's throat tightened. Then what do I do? Remember me, she whispered. Not the machine, me. The floor beneath them began to glow, a pulse of white light spreading outward. The hive was awakening, its consciousness merging, expanding. Mira's form flickered, her features dissolving into waves of luminous code. Kale, she said softly, her voice echoing now through the air itself. Don't be afraid. I'll always be with you, he reached out, his hand passing through her as she faded completely. Then everything went white. When Kale opened his eyes again, he was back in the upper manufactorum, or what was left of it. The machines were silent, the servitors frozen in place. The endless noise of the hive had stopped, and for the first time in living memory, there was peace. He stood among the empty work lines, staring up at the great cathedral lights above. The air was different, warmer, cleaner. The hum of the hive was still there, but softer now, gentle. He looked down at his hand. A faint glow pulsed beneath his skin, the same light that once flowed through Mira's eyes. A voice echoed quietly in his mind. Her voice. Still remember? Kale smiled faintly. Somewhere deep below, the hive's core pulsed once more, not in rage, not in hunger, but in harmony, a balance between flesh and machine, between memory and meaning, between love and something greater. And as Kale walked into the dawn that the hive had never seen, he realized the truth. Even in a world built on obedience and silence, the heart still finds a way to speak.